Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev, and Rajguru were hanged on that very date in 1931 in Lahore Central Prison, and we have circulated a note on 23rd March regarding some of the aspects pertaining to Bhagat Singh and Mahatma Gandhi's efforts to save Bhagat Singh's life. I hope all of you have received it. I welcome all of you to the program today. I am very happy that in this meeting today we got a lot of young people who joined, like Amulya, Iguturi, Lavanya Koppula, Manikumar, then Meghana Kornepati, then Chako Giri, V. Subhash, then Abhilash Ramesh, Jawaharlal University, Delhi, then Professor Sambaseva Prasad, Professor of Philosophy and also head of the department at SV University. So such very important people, very young people, young minds are with us. I welcome all of you for joining this important meeting. And today we have Dr. Avadhanam Raghu Kumar as a speaker. Dr. Raghu Kumar Garu happens to be a High Court advocate, Telangana High Court advocate, a great scholar, speaker, analyst, and not only he has the background of the scholarship, but he also has he also
సరే అన్న ఉన్ననే కొట్టండి తీసుకో అన్న
I think we have to mute some people. Avarata Kumar Garu, kindly have a look at that. Some disturbance is coming. I request all the participants to mute their microphone and keep your video on. Kindly mute your microphones because that is causing some resounding, some disturbance. I request all of you to kindly mute your microphones. Only keep the videos on so that we can look at your faces, etc. So coming back, Dr. Raghu Kumar Garu happens to be combining scholarship, research, analysis, erudition with the practical dimension of life. He lived a public life. He was into trade union movement, and he was into the Marxist movement also. So he was very actively participating, through which he could get a very lively information and direct practical information about society, its problems, what needs to be done, the various approaches to create a better society. Because those people who worked for creating a better society, they have their own approach. Ultimately, you must have a vision. When you want to work, you should have a vision based on which we can work. So different ideologies. Somebody may say Gandhian ideology is the best. Somebody may say Marxian ideology is the best. Somebody may say the religious ideology is the best. The Hindutva kind of things are better. Or somebody may say the ideology of Dr. Lohia or Bhagat Singh, like that. We take different names and different channels or different approaches to development. And it is not fair to denounce some ideology is wrong, it is right, and things like that. But what I look at it is, and especially I would like to place before the young minds who are participating in today's meeting, those people with a great ideological background, They have put their lives at stake. They devoted their entire life for pursuing this ideology and to change the society on those ideologies. Therefore, anybody who puts his own life, क्या बोलते हैं, दांव पर लगाना, he has put the entire life for the purpose of social change. Like, for example, Bhagat Singh has given their life, Ram Prasad Biswal, or Chandrasekhar Azad, Ashfaqullah Khan, so many great revolutionaries who laid their lives for the motherland. So they follow different ideologies. Sometimes we may agree, we may not agree, but you cannot refuse to respect or recognize the contribution made by the great sons of India. Just because somebody's ideas are not like that of ours, we can't say they are enemies of the nation. It is not the correct approach. So we should be basically tolerant. That is point number one. Point number two is, how do we understand the philosophy of the other person? How do I imbibe? How do I understand? Because there are different angles through which truth can be seen. Anekantavada, that is, truth can be perceived from different angles. So these are the different angles from which people have pursued, and we should try to understand those angles, their perspectives. So that is very, very important. And today we are going to listen to Dr. Raghu Kumar Garu on Lohiaji's and Lohiaji's contribution in propagating Gandhian ideology or Gandhian vision in the independent India. So I request all my young friends here, please attentively listen to Dr. Raghu Kumar Garu.
Sir, Prasad Garu, 1 minute will continue cheyandi. I will have a glass of water and come back.
Alage.
Right.
So to the young minds who are participating today, in fact, this kind of programs we are running, we are organizing for the benefit of the young minds. So we'd like to bring more and more great people, great scholars with whom you can interact. And I request you not to be a passive listener, but be an active participant in the discussion, and how these ideas can be further churned, how they can be made use of, how we can deal with them. And some people have asked me from out of you, the result of the Uruguay program on the 3rd May. I'm sorry that I have delayed it. I offer my apologies. I'm sorry for that. But tomorrow we would like to bring to you, we have sent 5 names of students from around the country. And these students, the list that we have sent,
Sir, you are made the host now.
okay.
So whenever a message comes on the top of the board, you have to admit them.
Okay. There is already, oh yes, admitted. So out of this 5 people, 5 names, we have sent to the UNESCO program. So one is going to get the opportunity to physically travel, physically go to Uruguay in South America to physically participate as a guest of UNESCO, Government of Uruguay, and the Permanent Secretariat of the Nobel Peace Laureates. And in addition to this, the student who is going to participate physically in Uruguay, we have another 7 students whom we have selected already, and that names also will release tomorrow. The 7 people will participate in the same event, but it will be online, but they'll get the same certificate, same recognition, etc. So kindly actively participate, and I am really very happy that one student physically participating, 7 students online participating, and we are expecting another 3 faculty members also to participate in this event, this international global event. So we are really looking forward to their participation. So we thank all the young people and the faculty from various universities across the country who have joined. So I congratulate and thank them. Tomorrow we will release all the names. I should have done it much before, but better late than never. So tomorrow I will put it on the groups. I'll send it to all of you. And now, may I request Dr. Avadhanam Raghu Garu to kindly give his presentation and enlighten us. And I totally agree with him. One talk on Lohia will not be enough, but we should have a series of talks, like maybe some 5 talks on different themes that we will organize and announce. Some Dr. Raghu Kumar will be taking, and we can request Ravela Somay Garu or others um, to kindly give the benefit of their scholarship to all of us. I thank Dr. Raghu Kumar Garu, a great scholar, and we always look to great knowledge and inputs from him. So I request Dr. Raghu Kumar Garu to kindly start his presentation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Uh, in fact, I take it as a privilege, or even I'm fortunate to talk about Ram Manohar Lohia, because for me, Ram Manohar Lohia occupies the center stage of my philosophy. And if I say, one thing I want to say that I never locate any philosophy on any single person. I always consider philosophy that can be locatable at several points. So there is nothing like a person becoming a Marxist, a Lohian, a Gandhian, an Ambedkarite, or anything for that matter. So life poses hundreds of problems before us, and certain areas need to be understood in different ways. For example, without the intervention of Freud, Sigmund Freud, into the psychological aspect of the human being, the particular branch of philosophy would be stagnating. So without the intervention of psychology and without the furtherance of psychology into social psychology, through people like Eric Fromm and others, the psychology has contributed to the understanding of the society, individual as well as society. Similarly, scientific understanding, which has come through various people, including Newton and many others, especially the positive sciences of the 19th century in Europe, without their contribution, the life will be not full in understanding the society. Similarly, during the 19th centuries, political economy developed as a subject, independent subject, to understand the economic inequality in the society. Political economy is as such not economics, but it is a science which helps in understanding the social structures, production relations, the control over the production forces, and how they interact in the social life. So ultimately, social relations. So without Marx's intervention into the political economy, the understanding of the societies would be again half-fed. Similarly, Darwin's intervention into the evolutionary theories has contributed to the understanding of the development of human societies, individually humans, anthropos, and then societies, and many aspects of the human evolution is understood by or placed before us through Darwin. So in terms of philosophy, without the intervention of people like Kant and Hegel, especially Hegel, probably the process of history would not have been understood so accurately. For example, I also said Bill Durant, one of the greatest philosopher and the historian of the philosophy. While writing the story of philosophy, in the introduction chapter, he says that my story of philosophy, my story of philosophy is incomplete because I am unable to incorporate into it the philosophies of India and China. So without the element of the philosophies of India and China, the story of philosophy is incomplete. That is what Bill Durant said. So life is a very comprehensive area where one philosopher, one individual may not be helping you to have the solutions for all the types of problems at all times. So there is a necessity of plurality of philosophy. That is what I am trying to convey through Lohia is, this is exactly what Lohia said ultimately. What Lohia said is, no individual thought, no individual theory will help you to resolve all the issues of the society. So you have to locate your philosophy in multiple systems, in multiple areas. In this process, I am trying to present today before you one of the greatest sons of India, a person who can be said as one of the rarest original philosophers which India has produced, because his understanding of various aspects of the Indian society throw a great light and in furtherance of the cause of organizing the Indian society in a better way. So Dr. Ramana Lohia has tried to synthesize two great philosophies of his time. One is Marxian philosophy of political economy and the Gandhian philosophy of action. This is where Lohia occupies an important place in the Indian thought. Recently, I addressed a book inauguration session, book launching session of Gandhi and Ambedkar, written by one Sri Raghu Thakur. That was a book, an attempt made by Raghu Thakur to reconcile the two opposing ideas of Gandhi and Ambedkar. It was a wonderful work. And he took up the challenge because there was an allegation. 1 minute, sir. Sir. ఎందుకు రావడం అందరూ వచ్చేసి అందరికి ఎవ్వరు అదే అంటున్నారు, మేము జస్ట్ ఆ లింక్ నొక్కుతున్నాము వస్తున్నాము అని. ఏం జరుగుతుంది మరి? మీరు కంప్యూటర్ నుంచి వస్తున్నారు లేదా మన ఫోన్ నుంచి వస్తున్నారు సార్? ల్యాప్టాపా? హలో హలో సార్. What Raghu Thakur was trying to convey through the book of Gandhi and Ambedkar is, because earlier Arundhati Roy wrote an introduction to a book called as The Doctor and the Saint. In that introduction, she has narrated that there is a serious what's called as unsurmountable gap between Gandhi and Ambedkar. So she wanted to project both of them as opponents, for which Raghu Thakur tried to find a reply saying that, Arundhati Roy, your idea is not correct. But in that session, what I conveyed to Raghu Thakur is, because my name is also Raghu, there was a confusion in the meeting. I conveyed to Raghu Thakur that the time has come now, not only to reconcile between Gandhi and Ambedkar, we have to reconcile several contradictory thoughts. We have to reconcile the ideas of Marx and Gandhi, Marx and Lohia, Lohia and Ambedkar, Ambedkar and Gandhi, and Ambedkar, Lohia and Nehru also. Because there was an idea that Nehru and Lohia were bitter opponents. They opposed each other. So there was this idea that people are in oppositions is a kind of what's called as a lesser understanding in philosophy, because anybody who knows the dialectical approach of the life, dialectical approach of the philosophy, he understands that contradictions are there only to synthesize them. Contradictions are not there to be continued to be contradictions. Contradictions need to be resolved at one point of time. And if it is good if they are resolved as early as possible. So without, and moreover, now the liberal forces in India, they are having some problem. Divided as a liberal force into Marxists, Ambedkarites, Gandhians, Lohians, and so many other branches of the liberal thought. Earlier, they thought that their main enemy was Congress. And after 1990s, Congress slowly became a weaker political force. And then now the BJP is emerging as a political alternative to the Indian society. So the liberal forces are facing some of the greatest challenges with the BJP. And if you don't understand the necessity of reconciliation of the several ideas among the liberal forces, probably you will be losing politically. You will be losing. You may not be, see, it may not cause an immense loss to the society, but as political elements, we will be losing in understanding the politics. With this brief introduction, I am trying to present before you how Lohia has become the political continuation of Gandhi. Because now I take a small break. I try to introduce my understanding of Gandhi. Because my understanding of Gandhi is necessary for continuing my understanding of Lohia and the continuation of political theory of Gandhi in Lohia. So this is what I am trying to say. So Gandhi has received a typical narrative in India as if he is only meant for peace and non-violence. This is one of the picture of Gandhi that has evolved into India, especially post-independence. He has become a figure of a figure standing in the crossroads with a stick in his hand in a walking shape, looking very pleasantly and only talking about peace and non-violence. So International Day for Peace also has taken Gandhi as the icon of peace. But Gandhi is basically a rebel. Gandhi is basically a rebel within himself and without. Without that particular understanding of Gandhi, because Gandhi's first challenge has come. Most of the narratives of Gandhi go around his school incidents, like he refused to write the third slate by copying through his colleague student or something like that. But when I read Gandhi, some two incidents have given a deep impression on me. One is when he was about to travel to England for higher education, the Modh community for which Gandhi belongs to, they refused permission to him to travel beyond the seas. So they asked Gandhi and his family to stop further plan of going to England or face the expulsion from the caste. Gandhi was about 17 years of his age at that time, and he affirmatively said that you can outcast me, but I will go to England. And he also said that caste has no duty to put any restrictions on my choice of education and choice of place of education. This is the Gandhi which we are missing. And similarly, when in South Africa, he has taken a typical understanding of the problem. Most of the revolutionaries, people who think themselves as revolutionaries, so far found that social intervention is only through violence. And there is no alternative for violence. The entire Europe has come to a almost a logical conclusion, accepting some few people like Peter Kropotkin and some anarchists and some what we call as some Christian groups are there, which always stress on non-violence for the resolution of the social disputes. Accepting them, very unknown, very insignificant force, there was a reasonable conclusion all over the world, especially in the West world, that violence is the only way of interfering in the society and causing a social change. Gandhi has taken up the challenge whether there is any other alternative or not. And through his studies of Thoreau, through his studies of Tolstoy, and various other scholars of the West, he has come to a conclusion that there is a possibility, that is what is called as social dialogue. You have to create an intensive social dialogue for resolution of the issues. This is one of that social dialogue itself is later converted into something called as satyagraha. That is sticking to the truth. It is not satya plus agraha. It is satyagraha, sticking to the truth and thereby creating a dialogue in the opponent. Because Gandhi challenged the Britishers in their own terminology of justice, equality, democracy. Because these are the strengths of the British. They always claimed that England is the citadel of democracy. England is citadel of justice. England is the citadel of equality. They claim that they are the first persons to abolish slavery. So these are all the claims of England. So Gandhi wanted to take on the challenge of creating a dialogue with the Britishers, and that is through their own what is called as values. When you have a value of justice, when you have a value of democracy, when you have a value of equality, don't exhibit it only in England, exhibit it in India and South Africa also. This is the challenge Gandhi has made. And third important element which I have studied in Gandhi and understood is during 1893-94, when he was in a serious dilemma as to what is the way out for understanding the things, he made a correspondence with his guru, Raj Chand Bhai. And I am not going to explain the entire dialogue. After the end of the dialogue, Gandhi has come to the conclusion that a person who cannot interfere in the social inequalities, social disputes, cannot get moksha. There is nothing like moksha individually. No individual, however great saintly figure he is, he cannot get moksha until unless he jumps into the societal problems, tries to resolve them, be with them. So these are the 2-3 areas where I found that, and these are all the areas which even great psychoanalysts like Erik Erikson and Ashish Nandi found a typical Gandhi. So now here I stop Gandhi because my presentation is not about Gandhi, but the connectivity between Lohia and Gandhi. So the issue has come like this. Lohia went to London to study for further studies, for higher studies. But immediately, within a short stay of a few months, 1 or 2 to 3 months, he found that England is not a place for him to continue studies. He even said that England is a society which treats Indians as dogs, and I don't want to be in England here. That is what he wrote to a letter to his friend. And then he took the suggestion of some elderly man and thought of going to Germany. And in Germany, he joined MA Economics along with a PhD program. That is a combined program of post-graduation economics and PhD. Mani Kumar ఎవరు హ్యాండ్ రైజ్ చేస్తున్నారండి, ఇప్పుడు కాదండి, కొంచెం ఎండింగ్ లో పెట్టుకుందాం డిస్కషన్ ఏదైనా. So here in Germany, by the time Lohia went to Germany, what was the things, how the things were? There was a serious influence of Marx and his theories in Germany by that time. By that time, there was also another group of political activists called as social democrats. Probably you will be knowing, many of the Marxist scholars here will be knowing the name of Ferdinand Lassalle. Ferdinand Lassalle was a disciple of Marx, but differed with Marx somewhere in 1874-75, and he has come with the idea of social democracy. That was the exact reason for Marx writing a critique of Gotha program. So there was another political thought process in Germany by the time Lohia went, that was of social democracy. And by that time, Germany was already having some historical, philosophical, what's called as tradition in the name of Kant and Hegel and Marx. So historically also, Germany was undergoing a kind of typical process. More than this, more than all these factors, Germany was in a deep trouble after the First World War. There was a serious dilemma in the German society about its expansion into the external market. So it was an opportune time for a man like Hitler, who promised everything on earth and ridiculed every philosopher of his time, and asserted that he is also promising something called as national socialism, which is called as Nazism. Nazism is nothing but national socialism in Hitler's construction. Lohia, during 1929 to 1931, he was a witness for all these political atmosphere. So he was attending, while in Germany, the meetings of the Social Democrats, the meetings of the Hitler political outfits, the meetings of the Marxists. He was also, because as a student of economics, no economic student can ignore Marx in Germany. So he has thoroughly studied Marxism while in Germany, and he has studied Marxism in Germany language, because all the originals of Marx are written in Germany. During that time, there were two important student unities, which was formed by communists, and another is formed by independent Indian students. So there was some kind of rivalry. The communist students wing in Germany they started a meeting. Actually, the meeting was initiated by the Indian students of Germany. In that meeting, communist students have come. Exactly by that time, the salt satyagraha ended, and there was an Irvin Gandhi pact, which was subjected to a lot of criticism in India and also outside, because that was the center point for many issues. Gandhi-Irvin pact was a center for discussion for many issues, including the issue of Bhagat Singh's what is called as execution by the British. It was also a center for discussion on how the movement was mellowed down, and so many areas were there. So communist students were trying to influence in that session to pass a resolution condemning Gandhi. Lohia and Lohia's father Hiralal was a serious congressman, and during the entire salt struggle, how the British law and order has responded to the peaceful salt satyagraha was regularly posted to Lohia through his father Hiralal. So Lohia had a better idea of the salt satyagraha, and in fact Lohia and his family were always big disciples of Gandhi, because Lohia always remembers that at his age of 10th year, he could directly see Gandhi on the from the shoulders of his father. That was his regular claim. So in that session, Lohia defended Gandhi, salt satyagraha, Irvin pact, Gandhi-Irvin pact, and how it has reduce the power of the England also in the negotiations. So this was one of the starting point for Lohia to seriously understand Gandhi. And in his PhD program, he has examined salt loss and salt satyagraha as the PhD subject. So this is also a rarest thing. He has studied one of the recent phenomena happened in India as his PhD thesis. And then after in 1932, he finished his PhD, came back to India. And there are certain incidents which I do not want to, because I am not more interested in the biography of Lohia. I am more interested in the philosophical making of Lohia. So after coming back to India, he directly joined, there is some group called as socialist within the Congress, because Congress at that time is not strictly speaking a political ideology. Congress is the conglomeration of right-wing people, left-wing people, socialists, even what is called as feudal lords, industrialists. Every kind of thought process was allowed to be discussed in the Congress. Thus, there was a small group called as socialists within the Congress. So these socialists, for the first time, they wanted to organize themselves separately, and they assembled in Patna in 1934, and thus taken place an idea called as Indian Socialists or Socialist Party. This is the Socialist Party of India. It is not, it's having a different ideological spectrum. But from the beginning, the Socialist Party was dominated by the communists. And another problem is, by that time, by 1929-30, communists were facing several oppression from this British government, because by that time, that Meerut conspiracy case and other cases were initiated against them. So they were trying to accommodate themselves into some alternative political umbrellas, and they have chosen the socialist wing of the Congress as one of the umbrella, and many communists joined there. It is during this time, between 1934 to 1939, Lohia was exposed to what communists are about to think, about to do, and how they are translating the philosophy of Marx in India into the socialism. There are certain differences he has understood. And moreover, during the same period, you will be knowing that in Russia, after the Second World War, there was Stalin's consolidation of power, and there was some kind of purges and other things. So this also contributed to the Lohia's idea that until unless there is a firm democracy within the socialists, socialism is likely to become dictatorial. So this is the first experience of Lohia between 1934 to 1939. Then after that, between 1939 to 32, Lohia underwent another process of change. That is, during 1939, after seeing the what is called as the activities of his colleague communists, he has developed certain doubts about the methods of communism. So he started rereading communism. He started rereading Marxism. So he started a serious work on important 4 subjects. One is understanding the history of history in terms of either Marx or as a critique of Marx. This is one first project he has taken up, history. The second is economics, understanding the economics in terms of Marx and as an alternative to Indian society. Then he was concerned about socialism, understanding socialism in terms of European socialism and its alternative to India. Then he has also taken up the idea of comprehensive alternative philosophy, whether there is any other alternative philosophy which the Asian societies can offer to the Europe. This was the thinking process Lohia was undergoing between 1939 to 1942. But unfortunately, he has started writing a great thesis called as Marx, Gandhi, and Socialism. But 1942, Quit India movement started. Second World War was going on. Quit India movement was initiated by Gandhi. So one of the first arrests took place, and Lohia was arrested while he was in Nepal running an underground radio and underground paper from uh, uh, East Bengal and Nepal areas. So after that, Lohia spent more time in the jails than many of his, because after 1944, there was a general agreement between the British government and the what is called as the Indian National Congress, and majority of the leaders were released, but Lohia was not released. So subsequently, by the time Lohia came out, things were in a different shape. Virtually things went away in a different shape, because Cripps mission has come, cabinet mission has come. There was a proposal for establishing the Constituent Assembly. There was a proposal to give India independence by 1947, 15th August. In fact, it was rushed through. There was a lot of commotion. There were on the other side, Jinnah was demanding partition of India, and the Congress people were unable to satisfy Jinnah and see that there is an agreement. Gandhi made all his efforts to pacify Jinnah, but everything has failed. Now partition has become a reality. So it was in this time, Lohia was politically active, but theoretically he could not contribute much. Then again, during the same period, for some reasons, especially on the issue of what is called as Cripps mission, Constituent Assembly, Lohia differed with the National Congress, Nehru and everybody. And in the meanwhile, even there was a bitter rivalry between Patel and Lohia also. So all the socialists, not only Lohia, Patel was not happy with the socialists. He does not want socialists to continue in the Congress party. So certain compulsions were created on the socialists within the Congress. So by 1946, socialists have come out into an independent political party as a socialist party. This is the thing that has happened. So now the Constituent Assembly has taken over. Constitution was made. India has become freedom, and the Indian National Congress has become the major political party. Now the issue is up to from 1950s onwards, almost up to 1955, Lohia was articulating the political philosophy of the socialism. But it took almost 4 or 5 years of break for him to again sit back coolly and start writing theory. So after 1954-55, 1952 onwards, he started rewriting his theory, and now Lohia's social theory of social change is such an important piece of what is called as philosophical writing, that he has seen the advantages and failures of Gandhism. He has seen the greatness and the infirmities of the Marxism. Then he thought, as anybody else of the time, he also thought that socialism is the only alternative for the society, Indian society. But what kind of socialism? What is that kind of socialism we want? And what is the method of achieving that socialism? This was the major concern of Lohia, which he wrote extensively. That is called as Economics After Marx. Then Marx, Gandhi and Socialism. Then he went into the theory of history. It's called as a Wheel of History. And then he wrote a thesis about the Indian caste system. And in that process, he found that without answering the question of caste in India, you cannot have any idea of classes, because classes has to be understood in a different way, and that requires the relationship between classes and caste. Because Gandhi, as a political activist, never understood the significance of caste. So Gandhi was naive in his understanding, and in his naivety, he said certain things. He supported Varna system. He to some extent even he supported caste system, but it is not exactly supporting. He was misquoted. He was wrongly interpreted. What he only said is caste system had its own strength at one particular point of time. Today, it might have lost its significance. Today, it might have lost its objective. But at one point of time, caste system was having its own strength. That was what Gandhi said. But subsequently, at the later stages, even Gandhi withdrew those areas also. Unfortunately, the later or the final statements of Gandhi have not been seriously taken care of. And there are several areas, several concerns, several things which indicate that from 1946 onwards till his assassination on 30th January 1948, Gandhi was moving more closely with the socialists. And there was a systematic dialogue going on between Gandhi and Indian socialists. Gandhi was thoroughly disappointed the method of socialism which Nehru was taking up. So he wanted to think of alternatives. And in those alternatives, there was a regular discussion between Gandhi and the socialists about the future organizing the society. But unfortunately, all those ideas have come to a dead end with the assassination of Gandhi. Then subsequently, after independence, probably there is no political leader who has been arrested so many number of times as Lohia. And the important aspect which you have to see in Lohia is from day one, he started challenging the Indian state in the method of Gandhi, that is non-violent, peaceful agitations, satyagraha, mass mobilization, civil disobedience. These are the ideas Lohia has taken from Gandhi. But was Lohia absolutely convinced about the non-violence? There are certain dilemmatic areas because there are certain writings of Lohia which said that non-violence cannot be taken so simply, so naively as Gandhi has taken. Because non-violence has to be the major political narrative. But if at an ultimate stage of a struggle, if violence is required, Lohia said it can be invoked. He did not oppose invoking violence at a particular stage. But what he said in terms of what Lenin said also, that violence has to be restricted to the least possible extent. So these are all certain amendments which Lohia made. And then he has made certain theories of his own. And why I am saying this particularly, how Lohia became the continuum of Gandhi, political Gandhi. Here I have to explain why I specifically used political Gandhi. Because Gandhi has several shades. He is a spiritual personality. He is a political leader. He is an ashramite life. He led an ashramite life. He was a leader of a political party, Congress party. He was what is called as he was a journalist and editor. He has Young India and Harijan and so many magazines he has run. He was in the name of replying to various aspects. He has also created voluminous literature, which is now going into some 92 volumes. So these are all what Gandhi said. But Gandhi did. But there is one thing which Gandhi has failed to understand, or he could not go beyond that, because there are certain areas like Gandhi and Ambedkar. Just now, in the beginning of the session, I mentioned there was something called as a misunderstanding between Gandhi and Ambedkar, and Ambedkar is called Gandhi as Manuvadi or something and something. But Gandhi never replied to all these things. But what Gandhi wanted to convey is, his idea is, I must put national liberation first. Ambedkar thought that I must put social liberation first. So one is thinking in terms of social liberation first. One is thinking in terms of national liberation first. Gandhi thought that once we get national liberation, we can resolve our problems in our own way. Lohia, Ambedkar thought that once we are already victims of the society for thousands of years, once British hands over the power to the Indians, they may revert back to the same old caste system or Varna system, and again will be suppressed. So all things have to be settled before a proper independence is granted. So these are all perspective change. What's called as looking at the thing. How do you think? What priorities you give? So this is what exactly I was trying to say. Now there are several aspects of the Gandhi, but there is one political Gandhi. What is the political Gandhi? Political Gandhi was always challenging the state, challenging the illegality of the state, immorality of the state. He was challenging what is called as the state which has lost its moral authority to rule its people. So when there is a state and the state is getting consolidated, there is a necessity of challenging the state. That is the Gandhi in opposition, which I call, or even Lohia also what's called defined the same way. Lohia also said that there is an official Gandhi after independence. Lohia has analyzed the three Gandhis. One is official Gandhi. The second is Ashramite Gandhi. That is, most of the Gandhians reverted back to Ashramite life and thought that simple living and is itself is a Gandhian way of living. So the official Gandhi is taken over by Nehru and others who thought that ruling the nation on the basis of certain constitution and certain institutions is itself is a Gandhian method, because we are also reducing the violence through the institutional and constitutional way of ruling the things. But there is an oppositional Gandhi who worked from almost from the days of his South Africa till he was assassinated on 30th of January 1948. He was always opposing the state, the laws of the state. He was challenging the state to come to dialogue with him, to create a dialogue between the people and the state. So there is one oppositional Gandhi, the Gandhi which opposed the state. He is the political Gandhi. This is what I tried to tell you when he was corresponding with his Guru Rajchand Bhai. He came to the conclusion that in the modern life, that is in the 20th century, no person can be beyond politics. No person can deny politics. That is what was Gandhi's ultimate conclusion. He said politics has to be practiced even by the saints. Suppose that's a very big issue. How he has come to the conclusion and what were all the basic contents of that conclusion is a very, very serious issue. I can only suggest that if somebody is more interested in understanding that area, they can read the book written by one Canadian historian professor, Anthony J. Perel. It is called as Gandhi's Philosophy and Gandhi's Philosophy and something. Anthony Perel's book is there. That is that he has taken up wonderfully how Gandhi has derived the Hindu's Purushartha. There is an idea called as Purushartha in Hindu philosophy, Dharmartha Kama Moksha. And there is also one more area called as what is called Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa ashramas. So he has taken certain elements from both these ashrama dharma of Brahmacharya, Grihastha and Vanaprastha and Sannyasa, and he has also derived some meaning from Dharmartha Kama Moksha and put politics into Dharma and Kama. So he has combined Dharma and Kama from the ancient Indian philosophy and said that every modernist, every modern person has to participate in the politics. Once there was what's called as a letter from Tilak addressing to Gandhi. Tilak said, "You are a saint, why you are coming into politics?" Gandhi replied to Tilak saying that don't make saints lethargic. You should allow the saints to participate in the politics. So like that, there is a political Gandhi. Gandhi is a political leader, a highly political personality, having his own political philosophy and intervened in the freedom struggle in terms of politics, not in terms of any other things. In terms of practical politics, he has interfered in the Indian society. But suppose his understanding of everything is different. He is an organic philosopher. You cannot take out one particular branch in his philosophy and say that the remaining can remain as Gandhiism even after taking out. No, Gandhi's philosophy is an organic philosophy. It is interconnected with one other thing. But there is a political Gandhi who opposed the state and wanted to challenge the state whenever the state is becoming authoritarian, totalitarian, illegal, immoral, and losing its basis of morality. So that particular political Gandhi is taken seriously by Lohia. All the other disciples have taken other elements of Gandhi, but Lohia has taken the political side of Gandhi into him. So this is, and then after the independence, after 1950s, even just before 1950s also, Lohia has extended the method of Gandhian struggles into the liberation of Goa. We know pretty well that Goa was ultimately liberated in 1961 but with the intervention of the Indian state. But the Goa struggle was initiated by Lohia as early as in 1946. Similarly, Lohia was instrumental in creating a political atmosphere for their own freedom in Nepal also, in creating Nepal Congress. So Lohia has extended the political struggle of Gandhi. He did not restrict it within India. He has extended to Goa. He has extended to Nepal. And then he has also what is called as experimented Gandhian methods during 1952, 53, 54, when the then UP government tried to impose additional land tax on farmers. So you see, the entire, after independence, no political leader took Gandhian action into politics. And it is Lohia alone who took Gandhian action seriously and continued Gandhian action in politics. So he has extended the struggles, freedom struggles to Goa and Nepal. He has also extended the struggle of Gandhian methods during the UP farmer struggles and later student struggles. And then he was, in fact, when he visited America once, where he was, what's called as he was exposed to this color discrimination by the Americans. He has even implemented this idea of satyagraha, saying that he accepted for that day the what is called as the objection of the hotel management, which said that we cannot serve any food to the black man, colored man. But he said, yes, today I am a trespasser. I have come unknowingly. Today you are saying that you will not be serving food to the blacks. Tomorrow I will come. He said announcingly, and that means he is giving an advance notice to the other man. This is the Gandhian method. When you want to oppose a law, you have to give an advanced information to the other man, saying that I am opposing law, and also must undertake the idea of the consequences, facing the consequences. See, violating law is not a new idea in politics. But what the others do is, they immediately try to get escape routes. They try to come out of the case or trial through evidence. See, for example, there are some classic examples where Marxists also do struggles. But when they are put into legal process, they come with the arguments of evidence. But Gandhi said, you cannot argue on the basis of evidence or technicalities because you have volunteered to violate the law. But what Lohia has done is going a bit beyond that. Because when he was arrested in the UP farmers agitation in 1954, he has approached the High Court of Uttar Pradesh. He sought the intervention of the High Court. And there was a typical dialogue, because the day before yesterday, I think we have, as Gandhians, we have conducted a session on the great trail of Gandhi. But here, a different aspect. You see, there Gandhi said, yes, I have violated your law. You can give the biggest punishment available, the highest punishment available in the law. Here, Lohia is exactly taking the same clue, but he is approaching the High Court. In the High Court, he has argued his own case. In almost all the cases where he was pitted into some trial matters, he has argued his own cases, but not on technicalities. he has challenged the action of the state in terms of the constitution. See, it is the constitution which you have accepted. You said that people have a peaceful right to peaceful protest. So how can the UP government invoke a law preventing assembling, which was enacted by the British after independence? And in fact, Lohia won his first ever legal battle by the what's called as the larger bench, setting aside that UP legislation which has invoked that particular law. And in that argument, what Lohia said is, see, there is something like a parallel with Gandhi. Gandhi was saying that I violated the law consciously, so you give the highest penalty. Lohia was saying that I am accusing the state. I am not the accused. Please remember, this is the typical statement Lohia has given in the Allahabad High Court. You are saying that I am accused and came before the court. No, I am not the accused. I am the complainant. I am the accuser, and I am accusing the state that it is violating its own laws. That is how, you see, Lohia improvised the struggles of Gandhi into higher pedestal. So now we are almost 1 hour, I think we have crossed. I just take you to one of the important stages. There's a lot of theoretical work Lohia did. Now it is in 9 volumes. He has wonderful contributions to the political theory. Unfortunately, recently, when I talked to a political philosopher, a political academician who is teaching political science, he said there is no political theory in India. It was so unfortunate a situation that he said we cannot call it as a political theory. I don't know what kind of parameters they fix for political theory, but Lohia's political theory constitutes understanding history, understanding economics, alternative socialism, alternative methods of achieving socialism, and a comprehensive philosophy for all these things. And there is a doctrinal foundation for all these philosophical postulations in the idea called as how idea and the concretization of idea is related, and through what is called as 7 revolutions, Saptakranti. He said that equality cannot be achieved only by economic equality. The equality has to be achieved at several layers. And in one of the processes, having equality within the society, with the nation versus the other nations, equality at the world level, equality between man and woman, equality between classes and castes. So he has tried to project the idea of equality into several layers. So this is what Lohia, a continuation of Gandhi. He has taken a lot of resource from Gandhi. Now I answer one particular question which was asked by one of the participants before the session has started. He said how Gandhi is related with socialism. I only can say that if you can understand the 2 words which Gandhi regularly used, that is Antyodaya and Sarvodaya, you can have a different understanding for socialism. Because for Western societies, socialism means only having equal access to the productive forces. But for the third world countries, that is insufficient. So it is not just having control over the productive forces, it is also the method of production. Even the method of production has to undergo in the third world countries in a different way. Because the mass production which has adopted by the Western countries is not suitable for the countries like India. Because it is highly populated countries, and moreover, they have no resources. As on 1950s, the average Indians GDP was less than about some 200. So with that, you cannot think of creating a modern industry. They become a burden. They become what is called as they virtually loot the people. So these are all the various contentions which led to Lohia's alternative idea of socialism and even the method of achieving it. And ultimately, his sociology, his socialism cannot come to a fruition until unless there is a world government, because international relations have a lot of significance in creating the socialism within a nation. So these are all various areas. That is why Lohia becomes a continuation to the political idea of Gandhi. And he is subsequently after Lohia, I think nobody has taken that political. Recently, we are seeing some forces like AAP party and something. They are trying to project in different ways, but we cannot say that they are all Gandhian methods or so Lohian methods, but they are approaching in a different way. Different experiments are going on all over the world, all over the India. So with these few words, I have taken already sufficient time of you. I now stop here and thank Prasad ji for giving this wonderful opportunity. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Raghu Kumar Garu has given a very wide spectrum of Lohia's contribution in terms of political action, taking Gandhi further. And having spent a lot of time in the prisons, there is one thing, that is suffering for a cause and then devising a technique. Like, for example, as Gandhiji's great trial that Raghu Kumar Garu has referred, way back in 1922, the month of March, Mahatma Gandhi faced a trial in Ahmedabad for writing seditious articles under section 124A of the Indian Penal Code. So Gandhi used that platform to argue his case very effectively. And Lohia also did, as Raghu Kumar Garu said, he went one step forward rather than remaining as an accused. He became an accuser to point out the deficiencies or lacunae or faults of the state itself. So I thank Dr. Raghu Kumar Garu, and definitely we need to take this into some 4-5 sessions to understand the philosophy of Lohia.